One individual went from door to door, bending under the weight of swords, guns, muskets, and every kind of weapon, which he deposited as fast as he could. By the light of a lantern the co-tutor recognized Planchet. The co-tutor proceeded onward to the quay by way of the Rue de l'Aumône. There he found groups of bourgeois clad in black cloaks or grey, according as they belonged to the upper or lower bourgeoisie. They were standing motionless, while single men passed from one group to another. All these cloaks, grey or black, were raised behind by the point of a sword, or before by the barrel of an arquebuse or a musket. On reaching the Pont Neuf the co-tutor found it strictly guarded, and a man approached him. "Who are you?" asked the man. "I do not know you for one of us." "Then it is because you do not know your friends." "My dear Monsieur Lauvirez," said the co-tutor, raising his hat. Lauvirez recognized him and bowed. Gondy continued his way and went as far as the Tour de Nesle. There he saw a lengthy chain of people gliding under the walls. They might be said to be a procession of ghosts, for they were all wrapped in white cloaks. When they reached a certain spot these men appeared to be annihilated, one after the other, as if the earth had opened under their feet. Gondy, edged into a corner, saw them vanish from the first until the last but one. The last raised his eyes to ascertain, doubtless, that neither his companions nor himself had been watched, and, in spite of the darkness, he perceived Gondy. He walked straight up to him and placed a pistol to his throat. "Hallo, Monsieur de Rochefort," said Gondy, laughing, "are you a boy to play with firearms?" Rochefort recognized the voice. "Ah, it is you, my lord," said he. "The very same. What people are you leading thus into the bowels of the earth?" "My 50 recruits from the Chevalier de Humires, who are destined to enter the light cavalry, and who have only received as yet for their equipment their white cloaks." "And where are you going?" "To the house of one of my friends, a sculptor. Only we enter by the trap through which he lets down his marble." "Very good," said Gondy, shaking Rochefort by the hand, who descended in his turn and closed the trap after him. It was now 1 o'clock in the morning, and the co-tutor returned home. He opened a window and leaned out to listen. A strange, incomprehensible, unearthly sound seemed to pervade the whole city. One felt that something unusual and terrible was happening in all the streets, now dark as ocean's most unfathomable caves. From time to time a dull sound was heard, like that of a rising tempest, or a bellow of the sea, but nothing clear, nothing distinct, nothing intelligible. It was like those mysterious subterraneous noises that precede an earthquake. The work of revolt continued the whole night thus. The next morning, on awaking, Paris seemed to be startled at her own appearance. It was like a besieged town. Armed men, shouldering muskets, watched over the barricades with menacing looks, words of command, patrols, rests, executions, even, were encountered at every step. Those bearing plumed hats and gold swords were stopped and made to cry, "Long live Broussel! Down with Mazarin!" and whoever refused to comply with this ceremony was hooted at, spat upon, and even beaten. They had not yet begun to slay, but it was well felt that the inclination to do so was not wanting. Barricades had been pushed as far as the Palais Royal, from the Rue de Bons Enfants to that of the Ferronnerie, from the Rue St. Thomas du Louvre to the Pont Neuf, from the Rue Richelieu to the Porte St. Honor. There were more than 10,000 armed men. Those who were at the front hurled defiance at the impassive sentinels of the regiment of guards posted around the Palais Royal, the gates of which were closed behind them, a precaution which made their situation precarious. Among these thousands moved, in bands numbering from 100 to 200, pale and haggard men, clothed in rags, who bore a sort of standard on which was inscribed these words: "Behold the misery of the people." Wherever these men passed, Frenzied cries were heard, and there were so many of these bands that the cries were to be heard in all directions. The astonishment of Mazarin and of Anne of Austria was great when it was announced to them that the city, which the previous evening they had left entirely tranquil, had awakened to such feverish commotion, nor would either the one or the other believe the reports that were brought to them, declaring they would rather rely on the evidence of their own eyes and ears. Then a window was opened, and when they saw and heard they were convinced. Mazarin shrugged his shoulders and pretended to despise the populace, but he turned visibly pale and ran to his closet, trembling all over, locked up his gold and jewels in his caskets, and put his finest diamonds on his fingers. As for the queen, furious, and left to her own guidance, she went for the Marshal de la Meilleraie and desired him to take as many men as he pleased and to go and see what was the meaning of this pleasantry. The marshal was ordinarily very adventurous, and was wont to hesitate at nothing, and he had that lofty contempt for the populace which army officers usually profess. He took 150 men and attempted to go out by the Pont du Louvre, but there he met Rochefort and his 50 horsemen, attended by more than 500 men. The marshal made no attempt to force that barrier and returned up the quay. But at Pont-Neuf he found Lauviers and his bourgeois. This time the marshal charged, but he was welcomed by musket shots, while stones fell like hail from all the windows. He left there 3 men. He beat a retreat toward the market, but there he met Planchet with his halberdiers. Their halberds were levelled at him threateningly. He attempted to ride over those grey cloaks, but the grey cloaks held their ground, and the marshal retired toward the Rue Saint-Honor, leaving 4 of his guards dead on the field of battle. The marshal then entered the Rue Saint-Honor, but there he was opposed by the barricades of the Mendicant of St. Eustache. They were guarded not only by armed men, but even by women and children. Master Friquet, the owner of a pistol and of a sword which Lauviers had given him, had organized a company of rogues like himself